and that will be the last briefing. In our center, we will speak about coalition agreement on in the sector of railroads. Will there be real reforms or just imitation? We'll speak to our speakers, Viktor Ostapchuk, who's an MP, the head of the subcommittee on railway transport in the Committee on Transport and Communications, Oleksandr Kava, Coordination Center for Implementation of Economic Reforms, Andriy Bukovskyi, Expert of Council for Reform and Minister of Infrastructure.
The area of railway transport, will it secure the real
reforms or just their imitation? Our next speaker is Viktor Ostapchuk, the member of Ukraine's parliament, Oleksandr Kava from Coordination Center for Implementation of Economic Reforms, and Andriy Bukovskyi, the expert from the Ministry of Infrastructure, will brief on this topic. Proszę вас, колеги.
Good afternoon, dear participants of the press conference. Dear colleagues, today we would like to talk not only about the coalition agreement, but in general about the reforms in Ukrainian railway, because I'm the head of the Committee of Ukrainian Railway, and I worked in railway all my life. During the last 12 years, I was the chief of South Railroads of Ukraine, so that's why I know this sector as a professional. And when they passed legislation, I see how it works, and I can tell you that professionally I see that the situation is not just became difficult, just stopped. Because since January 1st, Ukrainian railway it will be a shareholder society, and we see the number of circumstances they are trying that they stop the reforms. And there are different analyses, and I believe that any machine building allows to occupy the industry, allows to involve 780 people. So that's why Ukrainian railway it's locomotive of our economy. Look at the enterprises in Donbass, and many enterprises, including Mariupol, they cannot work with a full capacity, and it's because of railroads, throughput of Ukrainian railway. So that's the issue of life and how to raise profits, how to make money for the budget of our country. That's very important. That's why on the 19th of October we held a round table, and we invited all professionals on reforms, and we looked and we saw that we are behind. We are behind because we are slow, because the reform stopped, and those half a year since July, when after resolution 200 of the Cabinet of Ministers, it shows that the reforms will not develop by themselves, and I'm convinced that the reforms should take place, and they should start. The management should understand that we need to reform the Ukrainian railway, and labor collectives must be involved, because after the discussion of these documents and how they were introduced to the public, it's not clear to people why do we need to reform. People believe that this is a reform in order to reform, to dismiss people, to steal some property, etc. People don't understand that the reform gives them growth of their salaries and improvement of labor condition. And we support completely those approaches of the president and our government, and that the first thing we and patriotism and professionalism are important. And I would like to add, not not one person should be professional, but teams should be professional. Teams that are involved in reforms, and they told before we needed to contaminate people with ideas. People should understand that we need reforms not only for the country, but we need it for common people. And the program they developed clearly shows that conditions will be created, and according to which people can participate in managing their enterprises using different tools like buying shares. And then the next issue which moved us to come to this stage is that in coalition agreement, it's wonderful that the first time they speak about the infrastructure, about our railway, but whether by mistake or because of some other reasons, unconsciously, there is one paragraph, 1.1 and 1.4, they contradict the principles of reforms or of that concept which is which we have in our country. My colleague Andriy Bukovskyi will go into details, but I want to tell you that it says that instead of a shareholder society, there will be a holding companies, but they are built according to the program which was approved and which should be implemented after shareholders societies are created. So it's like scissors. That's why the parliament should clarify this issue, and I think it's a mistake. And they should put everything into harmony. And then paragraph 1.4, which was declared as like all the operators have access to transportation and also to engines. And this agreement says that monopolization of rolling stock, including engines. That is against the principles of reforms, and these documents must be reviewed. I know we have time. I think it's just it's not a mistake. It's when it requires some amendments. What else do I want to say? That in principle, we should look attentively on issues related to medicine, professional medicine, sectoral medicine. It was created during 150 years, and it was set up not just when Trump. It's just for safety. It was developed in order to support people who work in a certain industry. That's why they were in a hurry when they considered these issues. That's why many labor collectives of railway workers, they don't understand it. When we understand that Ukraine was and will be a united country, but a railway, such a structure which united West and East, North and South, this is a structure which is called an artery of the country. That's why it will strengthen their country. And we can do it if we reform it, if we set up such a structure which will additionally put our country together, unite us. Because believe me, during these years of work in railway, never there was an issue, a problem between the East and the West. We worked and lived as one corporate team, and headed by interest of the state, interest of our people, and it was very important. Professionalism is always very important. That's why today Ukrainian Railway, a reform that must take place, it must take place under the control of civic society, under the control of the parliament. And I believe that the new government, new ministries of infrastructure and roads, they should show their program how they want to run reforms. Ukraine Railway suffers because there is not enough of investments, and we made calculations, and we can get more investments. We can enlarge investment by 3 times, up to 27 million. That's what is missing. We are missing investments in our sector because we are still driving, but in several months there could be a point of that there is a return is impossible when all the equipment will not be able to perform the tasks, and this structure can collapse. That's why the issue of reforms in our sector, they are very important, and I believe that Ukraine Railway and everything else could be a serious driver of our economy. We have examples for that, and from our new history. Thank you very much, Viktor. Please, Oleksandr Kava.
Good afternoon. Briefly on coalition agreement, I will explain the technical part of it. The concept of reforming railway transportation is being implemented now, and that concept is defined as a concept. There was a law of Ukraine passed on setting up the Ukrainian Railway joint stock company. And according to the law on joint stock companies, the Cabinet of Ministers on the 25th of June passed a resolution on creating the joint stock company, and the founding capital includes everything but the strategic, which is owned by the state, and this mechanism has been developed for a long time. It was reflected in a special law, and that was to protect the state from different unforeseeable circumstances. These two words, as a holding company, which are now in the final version of coalition agreement, take the whole process back to the law of Ukraine on holding companies in Ukraine. And that clearly describes what holding company is. That is the holding company whose capital is formed from the corporate rights of other companies. That can include the assets and other property, but that cannot be more than 20% of the statutory capital. But we were planning that the statutory capital will include the shares of 7 companies, but this will not be even 1/10 of the percent of the expected statutory capital, which will be from 180 to 220 billion hryvnia. So looking at that, we can say that there's a collision here. If we basically need to review all the legislation, the new law is to be passed on forming the joint stock company. The program is to be changed, and if this process will take place, for that we need 1.5 or 2 years. You all know that the reform had to be implemented long time ago, and the development along that scenario can lead to the collapse of the whole sector. We hope that there was a technical mistake there, and it's like the comma was put in the wrong place. We sent our proposals. Creating the joint stock company Ukrainska Залізниця with the further forming of the holding and so on. From the companies which depend on the joint stock company. As to 1.4 item, this item declares development of the competition, and the main characteristic of the transporter is owning on legal basis of the movable locomotive and the wagons. Basically, it should be corrected. Locomotives are to be deleted from the everything else is correct. It's according to the law on forming the strategy, the joint stock company. Basically, this is signed by factions, this law, and the factions, in the factions there will be the MPs, and so we hope that the legal department of the Verkhovna Rada will work more on that without changing the concept, will introduce corrections, and this could be used by the opponents of reforms to slow down the reforms. As to the reform itself, basically the whole reform, very often they say it's about setting up the joint stock company, but that is an important step without which the reform is impossible, but that is just the first step. But then the whole sector is to be transformed. The main tasks of the reform is to create the source for innovation, for creating the assets which are now so much depreciated. There's the law of economy that the cost of the service should include the depreciation, which later is sent for reproduction of the means of production. When the main law of economy is violated, the company cannot function. For many years, during the independence of Ukraine, basically very little money was allocated for innovation. But if talking about the wagon park, the private capital helped us, But in locomotives, because locomotives, that is the state-owned sector, it's depreciated by 90%. And we expect that next year some irreversible processes may start. Ukrzaliznytsia has never had and will never have an opportunity to purchase what they need, all the locomotives and wagons. And so there is a need in the public-private partnership. They have to give an opportunity, a possibility at the legislative level, and the draft law is ready for that, which will allow private business to modernize the locomotives and lease it out to Ukrzaliznytsia. At what cost? At the cost of the existing operational costs minus 15%, and the business will take 10 or 12% to share.
Мы сможем достичь необходимого нам уровня.
We will be able to reach this level of 27 billion. I mentioned one element, but the key element is creation of the basis for the required depreciation costs. When forming the statutory capital, the assets, the property is assessed by international auditing company as is introduced into the statutory capital. Now it's assessed, it's under assessed, and that is the recommendation of the international financial organizations. They recommend to attract international assessors, and that was done. They were invited, many of them. The big five, there were 10 of them, and Ukrzaliznytsia organized the competition, but unfortunately the Anti-Monopoly Committee stopped the results, protecting the interests of one company. Of course, the law is to be implemented, the law on protection of competition. But you need to compare the results of the processes.
Лимит времени. Если будут вопросы.
Well, if you have questions, I will answer. Let us listen to Andriy Bukovskyi, the expert of the Council for Reforming. Basically, that was Andriy Bukovskyi. I'm Oleksandr Kava.
Railway of Ukraine, which is playing a very good important role in cargo transportation in our country. Without railroads, transport 30% of cargoes through Ukraine. To compare, in EU, railway, they transport only 18% from the whole cargo shipment, and they spend billions of euro to stimulate new cargoes from trucks transportation to railway shipment of cargoes transportation. Europe can only envy Ukraine because it is the most efficient for transport cargoes, and efficiency is better because there is less of exhaustion, CO2 to atmosphere, because even engines, they use combust less of CO2. The same with cargoes. And we have less of burden on highways and roads. And all legislation to start reforms is prepared, and there's the law on shareholders societies in the railway system of Ukraine, and there is a resolution on a certain shareholder society which will come in force after the procedures of assessment. And coalition agreement, which was initialed by political parties to form the coalition. It provides a lot of stages how to reform all the rules in the program of reforms of railway. They are provided in that agreement. There are 2 points which are not clear, but as I understand it's because of editing. It happens during the process of legislation when there are a lot of amendments and editing. On some stage they put a word in a context when it has no meaning. As to shareholder society, on the first stage there should be only one Ukrainian railway, only one shareholder society. It must not be a holding company. It should be a shareholder society which must unite 6 railways of Ukraine, more than 30 state enterprises that participate in the cycle of Ukrainian railways, and also 7 packages of shares that belong to the state. They also should develop the fund. And only on the stage of reforms there should be the stage of development of profile business or specialized business, and then they can leave the mother companies. So it doesn't take just 1 or 2 years. It's a longer process. At this stage we can speak about creation of a shareholder society, and then there could be other subsidiary businesses. And the second stage, which must be corrected, is that, and that is about public ownership on engines. When they developed this program of reforms, we looked at the experience of other countries, European EU countries and post-Soviet countries, and we have a lot to learn from them. We understand that the existing tools of work, like financial leasing and some other instruments, they allow big transporters to manage these engines. But the management should be centralized, and it should be in Ukrainian railway. But the form of property, it could be leasing, it could be rent. In all the countries, there are different. They have experience, but it must not be brought. It must not bring it to reducing of efficiency of our railway. Because if we compare Ukraine and Germany, we will see that cargo transportation in Ukraine is 4 times more efficient than in Germany. Look. We have Deutsche Bahn and private transporters. They transport 2 times more cargoes than Ukrainian railway, so they are more efficient. So we should preserve this technological cycle, should improve its competitiveness. We should work on that, and but the cycle should be preserved, and nothing should undermine it, because there is negative experience of Poland when after bad reforms and wrong steps, mistakes, that brought to the fall of 4 times fall reduction of cargo transportation. Thank you very much. If there is any question, I will be happy to answer. Thank you very much. Is there a question here? Do you see, in addition to danger or risks that reforms are postponed, do you see anything else? Like, do you see a risk in holding company if it will be set up before shareholder societies? Because in our country we have a law on holding companies. To apply it to set up shareholder society, that's not correct. legally, because one of the main rules of the first stage of reforms is that railway assets should be united. We have 6 railways: Lviv, Юго-Западная, Одесская, Приднестровская, Южная, and Donetskая. So these railways, they are in the same one cycle. They use networks of each other, and that's why there are a lot of formal interaction between railways. That's why on the first stage it's important to put these assets together for us and not to have additional misunderstanding between them. What are the main reasons why it is stop reforms? Is it because of anti-monopoly committee, and when are you going to continue reforms?
I would say it in such a way. It's difficult to say. It has been said already. Just like about coalition agreement. Maybe someone did it non-professionally or maybe accidentally. It's difficult for us to say that. We did not participate in this process. Second, the resolution of the Anti-Monopoly Committee could be understood differently. Is that done on purpose to delay? But there were certain steps made. The number of people decreased. The abnormal situation was created. Now it all is suspended. We know that from January nothing will change. Again, railways will make decisions, and Ukrzaliznytsia will send orders, and the railways will decide. There were many examples, and I suffered from them, when someone would make a decision and the head of the railway was responsible for that. In the beginning, just like, railway is strong because they are conservative. And we would treat many of these things like we need to think well before we do something. But this reform is done very professionally. And it has to start working. That's the condition for further development of railways of Ukraine. Because I can give you many examples. We will get economic effect in other sectors of economy if we implement many things. We're talking about monetarization of transportation. It has the program which gives jobs to our companies and which gives the opportunity to step away from privileged transportation. A lot has been mentioned about attracting private capital, about PPP. But that is today just like an announcement. As a rule, there's a company which invests money. I mean, private company, and the state is just observing, and their capital is zero. Why this is not done? Because this is about private-public partnership, but it's just on paper. In the Verkhovna Rada, I would like to work in the future Verkhovna Rada in the committee where I was working, because I'm professional railway specialist, and I believe that a lot can be done on the way of reforming our economy. The east of Ukraine, there are there's warfare there. We understand what are the roads there. So why wouldn't we force them all to go to railway? the trucks should go by railway, just like in Europe. And all these local tasks, they give an opportunity today to enhance the efficiency of the whole economy. I can give you more examples, many examples. Someone will say that is corruption. The access of private capital, like spare parts, materials, they are manufactured in some companies. The companies today, which Ukrzaliznytsia has, we need to supply equipment to them and they will operate. And people who work there, they can participate in management of these companies and they can earn. They will feel that the reform is implemented for them as well. Any other question? We know that Anti-Monopoly Committee recognized, the court recognized the legal decision on Anti-Monopoly Committee, and Ukrzaliznytsia is planning to resume this competition. Can you tell how much the property rights of Ukrzaliznytsia cost? And because of such actions, how long will the privatization of Ukrzaliznytsia continue? And also about the National Commission on Regulating the Transportation. What will this commission be about? So talk to Ukrzaliznytsia. I will not provide comments on their actions. What we know from open sources, they won the first instance, but the Anti-Monopoly Committee appealed. That is minimum 30 days, but from practical experience, it can be up to 2.5 months. So there's no progress now. One of the dates could be when the assessor starts assessment. This did not happen, so we believe that it will be delayed by 2.5 months, and taking into account the process of appeal, it's plus 2.5 months more. But every day, every extra day has additional threat. As to the Commission, according to anti-monopoly legislation, this commission is set up just like a NERC, and its functions are to regulate tariffs for the natural monopoly. That is the tariff for infrastructure, and other functions which will be defined in the provision of the Cabinet of Ministers, in the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers. As to expected statutory capital, it will be defined by the international assessing body. And I believe we made calculations that is minimum from 180 billion hryvnias to 250, 270 billion hryvnias. These calculations were made when the exchange rate was different.
It will not have a direct link because the property was assessed. Is there any other question? No. Thank you very much. We hope that pro-European majority in the parliament, we hope that they will support your reforms that you need, because Ukrainian railway does a lot for the east of Ukraine under these hardships, and that's why we believe that these reforms are needed and they will be implemented. Thank you very much. I will